Hello and welcome to GED Microlearning, a YouTube channel specialized in the GED math test. So remember, we're following up from yesterday's quiz, so if you haven't checked out that quiz, make sure you check it out. It's there coming up on the top right of your screen. And yesterday we had started to talk about polynomials, and we were talking about adding and subtracting polynomials. So today we're going to continue with that, but we're going to talk about multiplying in this question. So it's asking you to solve the following, to multiply 4x plus 2 multiplied by 5x plus 7. Okay, so remember that when you multiply polynomials like this, what we do is we follow the FOIL method. And FOIL is just an acronym that stands for first, outer, inner, last. Okay, so meaning that you multiply the first terms in each of those brackets, then the outer terms of both brackets, the inner terms, and then the last. Okay, so in this example, we would multiply the first terms, which are 4x multiplied by 5x, and that gives you 20x squared. Then the O, remember, is outer, so we'll multiply 4x times 7, which is 28x. Inner, 2 times 5x, which is 10x, and then the last, which is 2 multiplied by 7, which is equal to 14. And then all you have to do is add all of these terms together, and that gives you, oops, I just found a mistake there. That should read 20x squared plus 38x plus 14. Okay, so the correct answer is incorrect. As I said, it's 20x squared plus 38x plus 14. Okay, next question, same sort of scenario, except if you look now at the equation, one of the brackets is adding and the other one is subtracting. Okay, so once again, we're going to use the FOIL method, and here what you have to remember is to keep your signs correct. Okay, so we go ahead and multiply. So the first terms, 7ab multiplied by 5ab, is going to give you 35a squared b squared. The outer, that would be minus 49ab. The inner would be 2 times 5ab, which is 10ab. And then the last 2 multiplied by minus 7, which is minus 14. All right, and as we did before, we want to, first of all, add or subtract common terms. So kind of clean this up. So minus 49ab plus 10ab would be minus 39ab. Okay, like this. So your ultimate answer ends up being option A. All right. Lucy has 10x squared y board games and James has 2xy squared board games. Choose the expression below that best represents the product of the number of board games they have together. Okay, so they're telling us the product of the board games, all right? So that means multiply. First thing that you're going to do is that you're going to multiply the coefficients. So the coefficients are the whole numbers, so 10 multiplied by 2, that gives you 20. And then we're going to look at the x term and y terms, okay? So if we look at the x terms, we would multiply x squared multiplied by x, that gives us x to the third power, and y is kind of the same thing. So you have y multiplied by y squared, which is also y to the third power. So we're going to kind of change gears quickly here and remind ourselves of how you deal with exponents. Okay, so whenever you have exponents, if you have a situation, for example, like here, where you have the base number, in this case x is the same, all you have to do is add the exponents across, right? So in this example, if you have x raised to the third plus 3x raised to the fifth, since the base is the same, right? It's an x term. All you have to do would be to add those exponents together, and it gives you that. Okay, so in this case, that is why we were able to add the x terms and y terms together. Okay, so the correct answer is D, which is 20x to the third, y to the third. All right, so the next question asks you to simplify this expression. And remember that whenever you have a scenario like this, the first thing that you want to do is that you want to factor out the common term out of the numerator and sometimes also out of the denominator. Okay, so the numerator is the numbers on the top, denominator number at the bottom. Okay, so if you factor it out, meaning by that we mean a number that divides by both numbers, in the top we would end up with 4 multiplied by y plus 6. Okay, because 4 multiplied by y is 4y, which is the term there on the left, and 4 multiplied by 6 is 24. Okay, so now that you have this, the next thing that you want to do is simplify this equation. So because you're dividing by 4, you would go ahead and cross that out, and you end up with y plus 6. Option C. Okay, next question, kind of pretty similar. So you would go ahead and factor this out. So if you take the 5, if you factor 5 from the top, that's what you get. And once again, if you divide the 5 at the top by the bottom, you would end up with 5x to the 3 minus 15. Okay, so which is option A. All right, we're going to move on now to another section of questions which relates to quadratic equations. So it says factor the expression below. Okay, so a lot of times when people are trying to factor equations, it's kind of like a hit and miss thing where you're just trying random numbers or whatever, which ends up, being really stressful, makes you waste a ton of time. All right, so I'm going to teach you a way to factor equations, which is kind of more systematic. Okay, so when they ask you to factor an equation, the first thing that you have to do is you have to look at the whole number. And step 1 is to find all numbers, all factors or of this number, okay, meaning that all the numbers that if they multiplied together would give you 6. Okay, so minus 1 multiplied by minus 6 would give you 6, 1 times 6 gives you 6, 2 times 3 gives you 6, etc. Okay, great. Second step is you want to look at those numbers that you just found, then when added together give you that middle number, okay, so minus 5. So step 2 is find the numbers that you just found before that when added together give you minus 5. Okay, so if you look there, we said that minus 1 multiplied by minus 6 is equal to 6. And if we add minus 1 plus minus 6, that gives us minus 7. Okay, so that's not the right answer. Second option, same thing, right? It's also not the correct answer. 2 times 3 is 6, and 2 plus 3 is 5. Not the correct answer. But in this case, if you look at the very bottom line, if you have minus 2 multiplied by minus 3, that gives you 6. And minus 2 plus minus 3 is minus 5. All right, so that is the correct answer. You just found there the two numbers that are going to make up your quadratic equation. Okay, so they are minus 2 and minus 3. So that is what your equation is going to look like. So you're going to have x minus 2 multiplied by x minus 3. All right, so let's check that is correct, and we're going to do it using the FOIL method that we used before. So remember, in the FOIL method, you always multiply the first expressions. So x times x is x squared. Then we go for the outer expressions. So x multiplied by minus 3 is minus 3x. The inner, which is minus 2 multiplied by x, which is equal to minus 2x. And out the last. Okay, so minus 2 multiplied by minus 3 is equal to positive x. If you add all of these terms together, you end up with x squared minus 5x plus 6. Okay, so you can see this is a pretty straightforward method to do this. Okay, we're going to go ahead and do another question, once again, using this same method. Okay, so factor the expression below. All right, step 1, let's find all the numbers that multiplied together are going to give you positive 36. Okay, those are all the numbers that factored together, multiplied together, give you positive 36. And then step 2, remember we have to find all of those numbers that we just found, then when added together give you 13. Okay, so here's just a few. I'm not going to go through them in the interest of time, but do stop the video if that to kind of confirm. And the correct answer is right there. Okay, so 4 times 9 is 36, and 4 plus 9 is positive 13. All right, so here we have the two numbers that are going to make up the equation. Okay, positive 4 and positive 9. And once again, we want to double check that we got this correct using the FOIL method. So multiply the first expressions by each other, then the outer expressions, inner and last, and then you want to add all these terms together to give you that initial equation. Okay, so the correct answer would be C. Okay, the next question reads, the area of a rectangle is found by multiplying the length by the width. In the rectangle below, the area of the rectangle is equal to the expression x squared minus 27x plus 50. All right, so this is actually a very similar problem, just that it's a little bit worded a little bit more scary. Okay, so we're going to do the same thing that we did before. So step 1, find all the numbers that multiplied together give you 50, right? Here they are. And then step 2, find those numbers that when you add them together give you minus 27, okay, which is that number. And we already knew that one of the numbers was going to be minus 25, right? Because they give it to us there in the diagram. Okay, so, I mean, you don't really have to go through all of this, but, you know, because you already had that number available in the image. All right, so then the two numbers that, that you're going to use are minus 2 and minus 25. Once again, make sure that you check your work with the FOIL method. So multiply those first terms together, outer terms, inner terms, and then the last terms. And then you want to add all of them together to give you that expression x squared minus 27x plus 50, okay, which was what we started with. All right, we're going to do another problem like this. Once again, it's asking you to telling you that the area of a rectangle is equal to an expression which is 5x plus x squared plus 5x minus 14. And you're going to do the same thing you always do. Step 1, find all numbers that multiplied together give you minus 14, which is that number there on the top right. And there they are. And because they're giving you a clue on the figure, right, it's x minus 2, that's one of the factors, this is the correct answer, okay? So these are the two numbers that when added together give you positive 5. All right, so once again, step 3, always remember to check your work. You're going to multiply those terms first, outer, inner, last, and then you're going to add them together. Okay, so the correct answer would be x plus 7, okay? That's what that side would represent. All right, the next question asks you to multiply these two terms together. And again, just a recap of the FOIL method, we're going to go ahead and do that. So first you multiply 5x plus times x, that gives you x squared. The outer terms gives you 20x, inner terms, and then the last terms, add everything together. And that gives you that. Okay, so hopefully, you know, you've gotten a good grasp of the FOIL method and also how to find the factors for a quadratic equation. Okay, in this section, we're going to do work with functions, and excuse me, I'm going to make a quick plug-in for the channel, so if you're finding any value in this, please feel free to subscribe or share with any friends who you might think might, you know, benefit from this information. All right, so let's start with functions, as I said. So here this question is telling you for the function y is equal to 3x minus 5, find the number in the shaded box. All right, so this question might look a little bit intimidating, but it's actually super easy. All right, so let's first of all recap and remind ourselves what this means. All right, so whenever they give you like a table that like this, what they're telling you is that that value for x that you see there in the blue box, okay, when you plug that value of x into the equation there on the left, the answer for y is going to equal 3, okay? So let's just check that out. Okay, so let's have that equation, y is equal to 3 minus 2x, and we're going to plug a 0 where the x should be. All right, and they're telling us that the answer is going to be 3. right? So 3 minus 2 multiplied by 0 is 3 minus 0, so y is equal to 3. Okay, so that's all there is to this sort of table. So if we go back to the problem, now they're giving us that value for x, and all we have to do is find the value for y. So all you have to do is just take that equation there on the top, and you're going to put in that value for x where the x is located, right? So you would have 3 multiplied by 9 minus 5. That gives you 27 minus 5, which is 22. All right, that's it. That's all there is to it. Okay, so let's try a second question like this, just so that you feel comfortable with it. Okay, this one's a little bit trickier because you've got an x raised to the second power, and they're giving you that value for 5. So all you do, once again, you plug that value for x into your equation and work it out. That gives you 25 plus 3, which is 28. Okay, great. So now in this next question, this is a word problem where we are using functions. Okay, so it's saying Luke is considering 3 job opportunities. At all 3 jobs, weekly pay, which is symbolized as a P, is a function of the number of hours, H, worked during the week. How much more will he earn at job 3 compared to job 2 if he works part-time? Okay, so 20 hours per week. All right, so all you have to do here is you have to look at all of these equations, and what you have to do is that where you have the H, okay, which is the number of hours worked per week, you have to introduce the value 20, okay, because they're telling us he works part-time. So if you do that for each of the individual jobs, as you can see here, he would earn the least amount of money in job 1, followed by job 2, and followed by job 3. Okay, so he makes much more money in job 3. And the question asks us to, specifically asks us how much more money would he earn in job 3 versus job 2. So all you have to do in this second step is just subtract the amount that he earns in job 3 minus the amount he earns in job 2. That gives you $72 difference, which is option C. All right, question 39. A construction company is awarded a $120,000 job that costs $8,800 per day in expenses. So profits are calculated by calculating the difference between the award, which was $120,000, and the product of the expenses per day. If it takes them 8 days to complete the job, what is the company profit? Okay, so the first thing that I always like to do is to think about, what they're asking you in words. Okay, so basically the profit is going to be that amount that they were awarded, $120,000, minus the expenses that they incur in every single day. So they're telling us that the expenses are $6,800 and that they're going to be working for 8 days. So all you have to do is multiply 8 days by the expenses and subtract that from the award. All right, and if you do that, you end up with $65,600. Okay, so that would be the final answer. Question 40. Jason enjoys baking cookies with his nieces. For every cup of oats, they can make 22 oatmeal cookies. If they made 132 cookies today, how many cups of oats did they use? All right, so first thing is you're going to write your function out, okay, where f, function of cookies, is equal to 22c. And here, what that c represents is cookies. The 22 represents the cookies per cup of oatmeal that they can make. And the second C is going to represent the cups of oatmeal used. All right, so if we look back at the equation, at the question, well, we have some information that we can plug in, okay? We can plug in the number of cookies that they made in that batch, okay, which was 132. So you would set up your equation like that, and now all you have to do to solve for the second C, which was the cups of oats that they used, all you have to do is divide both sides by 22, and that gives you C is equal to 6. Okay, so they used 6 cups of oatmeal to make those 132 cookies. Okay, so in this section we're going to do a little bit of geometry, and basically we're going to do 2 questions that are similar like that, so that you can kind of get the info in the first question and then you can practice with the second question. All right, so question 41 says a construction company is digging a hole to install a new water pipe to supply water to a whole neighborhood. What is the distance in feet around the rim of the pipe? So basically what they want us to do is to find the circumference, okay, or the area around the pipe, you know, to make the hole, let's say. So just as a recap, when we look at the circumference of a circle, the formula is C multiplied by pi multiplied by the diameter. Okay, do remember that all of these equations will be provided for you, but you do need to understand, you know, when to use them and what they mean. Okay, so remember that that symbol there, pi, is equal to 3.14. Okay, so you would multiply that, multiplied by the diameter that they're giving you there of the pipe, which is 45, and then that gives you the circumference around the pipe, okay, which is 141.3, option C. Okay, next question, again, similar, a little bit different. In this case, they're asking us for the area of a circular structure. So it says the circular rooftop of a new mansion is being covered in solar panel tiles. Construction workers need to calculate the area in order to install the tiles. If the radius of the rooftop is 150 square feet, what is the area of the rooftop? All right, so the area of a circle is actually pi multiplied by the radius squared. All right, so all you have to do here is, again, remember that that symbol is equal to 3.14. And then you would include the information they give you in the question about the radius, which is 150 squared. That gives you 7,650 square feet. So notice that in the answer options, I didn't give you that option because I put it in scientific notation just to make it a bit tougher. So if we rewrote that number there in blue, which was our answer in scientific notation, basically, if you take that number and you move the decimal point 3 to the left, that is equal to this number, okay, which is option A. All right, question 43. So this next question looks at volumes. So it says, Joe wants to figure out the volume of a fish tank and to estimate how many gallons of water he can put in. What is the volume of the tank in cubic feet? And write your answer in the square below. All right, so if we look at the equation, basically they're telling us you've got this fish tank that I've represented there, which has those dimensions, right? So in order to figure out the volume of a rectangle, that's the formula, base multiplied by height. And the base is actually made up of 2 sides, the length and the width. Okay, so you would plug in the length and the width where the base is, and then you would multiply it by the height, which is 12 inches. And that ends up giving you 7,200 cubic feet for the volume. Question 44. Luke adds a cleaning chemical to his kid's swimming pool once a week. The instructions tell him to add 1 scoop of the product for every 25 cubic feet of water. How many whole scoops should he add per week if the diameter of the pool is 15 feet and the height 4 feet? Excuse me. All right, so the first thing that we want to do here is find the volume of a pool, okay, which is shaped kind of like a cylinder, if you like. Okay, so the formula is this: volume is equal to pi multiplied by the radius squared multiplied by the height. So in the question, they're giving us the diameter, which is 15 feet. So remember that the radius is half of the diameter, so that would be 7.5. And they also give us the height, which is 4 feet. Okay, so we're going to plug those numbers in the equation. And also remember that that symbol pi, as we said before, is worth 3.14. and that gives you the volume, which is 706. Okay, so that's step one, but the question is asking you how many scoops should he add per week to the pool. So the second thing that you have to do is set up a proportion. All right, so it's telling us that in the instructions, it tells them that 1 scoop of the product is used for every 25 cubic feet of water. So that would be your proportion, 1 to 25. And we already know that the volume of, or the cubic feet, is 706, as we said before, and we need to find x, which would be the number of scoops that he has to add to this volume of cubic feet. Okay, so once you set up the proportion, now what you have to do is multiply these numbers across like this. You end up with that equation, and then you solve for x by dividing both sides by 25, and that gives you 28.26. So in the question, remember that they ask you how many whole scoops should he add, so that is option C. All right, question 45 is a question where it asks you to find the perimeter of a figure. Okay, so just a quick recap. Remember that the perimeter is all the length, let's say, around a figure. So this would be the perimeter, this side plus this side plus this side plus this side, okay? So all you have to do is basically add all the sides. But if you look at the, the shape, you can see that that side on the right, there's nothing there. So make sure that you look at the image very closely, and you can see that that dotted line in the middle of the image is worth 30. That means that that side is also worth 30. And then in the bottom, you can see it's 15 and 15. All right, so if you add all of these sides together, you end up with 215, which is option B. Okay, question 46 asks you to calculate the area of this figure in centimeters squared. All right, so sometimes when people look at these figures, it makes them really nervous because they don't realize that you're actually looking at two figures. Okay, so the top part you can see is a rectangle. All right, so if you calculate the area of a rectangle, remember that it's length times width, so you would multiply 10 times 4, that gives you 40. And then the part at the bottom of the figure is a trapezoid, all right? And that's the equation for a trapezoid. All right, so all you have to do now is to find the area of the whole figure is to add the area you just found for the trapezoid plus the area of the rectangle, which would give you 95, option D. All right, so question 47 is asking you to find the angle x. All right, so when you look at a figure like this, a lot of people panic, but you shouldn't. You have to remember that whenever they give you a figure which is a four-sided plane figure, all the angles are equal to 360. Okay, so knowing that information, now this question is going to be pretty straightforward because you know that all of these angles, so x plus 72 plus 66 plus 44, are going to equal to 360 like that. So all you have to do is solve for x. Okay, so if we clean this up a little bit, add those numbers there on the left, we end up with 182. And then to isolate that x, we would subtract 182 from the left and subtract 182 from the right. That gives us 178, which is option B. Okay, similar question, but in this case, you can see that we have a slightly different shape. Again, this is a four-sided plane figure equal to 360. All right, so you would set up your equation in the same way as we did before. And then you solve for x, and that gives you 125. Okay, so the last two questions are also geometry questions, and they deal with calculating surface area. So it reads, what is the surface area of a pyramid with a slant height of 16 feet, a base with a perimeter of 15 feet, and a base with an area of 11 feet? Okay, so here what you have to remember, well, you don't have to remember, but the equation that you would use is this one, which is the equation for the surface area of a pyramid, which is this. So 1/2 of the perimeter multiplied by the height plus the base area. Okay, so they've told us in the question that the perimeter is 15 and the height is 6. So you would multiply that together plus 11, which was the base area. All right, and when you solve that, that equation, it gives you 56, which is option B. And then finally, question 50 is going to ask you the surface area, but of another structure, specifically a cylinder. All right. So once again, these equations, these questions, if you know where the equations are and what they symbolize, should be pretty straightforward. This is the equation for a cylinder. And all you have to do is plug those numbers from the figure into the equation. Okay, so remember that in the question it's asking you for the radius, r, and remember that the radius is half of the diameter. So when you look at the figure, 5 is the diameter, which is the distance across, and the radius is half of that. Okay, so it's going to be 2.5. So with that information, just plug those numbers into your equation. Remember that that symbol there that looks like a little desk, like a little table, is called pi, which is equal to 3.14. And when you solve for this, you should end up with 243.35, okay, which is option D. All right, folks, well, this is it for this quiz. Thank you so much for your time. Thanks for watching. If you found any benefit, please consider subscribing or telling your friends, share with your friends. And as always, thank you so much for your time and have a great rest of your day or evening.